fair work.
James.
You know, when you played the sound from Grego Bovino, and Michelle referenced children's books, I was thinking about the notion, and this is a quote from Aesop, the wolf and the lamb. The tyrant will always find a way to justify tyranny. And when you listen to Bovino speak, and he talks of illegal aliens, and he's talking of using that term, which is clearly a pejorative to start with for undocumented immigrants, he's using the term in the context of a question about Liam and his father, right? Basic fundamental point of law that America cannot hear often enough. Asylum seekers are not undocumented immigrants. They are here on a period of legally authorized stay. So even if one were to assume that this attempt to put the label out front, and we've seen this label, we saw the label in Minnesota, right? Domestic terrorist. The minutes after Renee Good was killed, she was a domestic terrorist. You put the label out front and then you reverse engineer backwards. But even if you bought that line of argument, it's also factually inaccurate as applied to this context.
Let me come back to you, Jane Sample. Where are the referees? I mean, how long do people whose 2- and 5-year-old children have been taken, how long do they have to wait until someone advocates for their legal rights?
The challenge here, and one of the things that is most frustrating about this sequence with Liam, the 5-year-old, the 2-year-old that Michelle told us about just moments ago, to me is, and if you think of it, let's use the referee analogy. Let's think about, we're watching the NFL playoffs, right? There's a pause for replay review. Sometimes it takes a few seconds. Why the rush? We can talk about this narrative or that narrative, and there are clearly competing narratives here. But here's an objective fact. Liam was in Minnesota and is now in Texas. Why the rush? What was the absolute urgent exigency that required them to be on a plane to Texas basically immediately? No, to your question, no chance for anyone to take a breath, anyone neutral, and it's the same, and we're seeing it in the context of these warrants. If an administrative warrant, if ICE can sign its own warrant and then turn around and say, well then, that's enough. That's not a check, it's not a balance, it's literally the exact opposite. It is acting as the judge in your own case. And so what I would say to the referee question is, why can't we at least take long enough for replay review? Why in the world does Liam need to be in Texas right now?
I mean, Rev, it does feel like the people are...
It's like we're seeing, both from the people in the streets, and also from some parts, not all parts, but some parts of the justice system, the judiciary, we are seeing, institutions and elements of the democratic process hold here.
James?
I mean, I think that is a glass half full perspective, and I love it. I think the challenge...
You should know it usually doesn't come from Tim.
I'm a Tim fan. I'm in the club. That being said, I mean, so I'll be the glass half empty.
Fine.
The attacks on the judges are real, and we are seeing judges, and I don't just mean the rhetorical verbal attacks, but we are seeing judges genuinely concerned for their safety, for their family's safety, and there are judges who are standing up. Certainly judges who are denying warrants when they're not differentiated in the application, which they absolutely have to be. Those judges standing up. That's very important. And we've seen lower court judges and state court judges around the country stand up. But we've also seen them be subjected to a level of rhetoric and some terminology and some adjectives that are just completely out of bounds relative to our history, tradition, and really the model that we purport to export around the globe.
Well, it isn't just speech. I mean, Esther Salas is a friend of the show, and she's talked about how judges are receiving pizzas as a threat and as a "we know where you live" message in the name of her murdered son.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we saw just yesterday, to go back to the Smith hearing again, another sort of instance of the pizza box kind of dynamic, right? The Michael Fanone scenario and the altercation or near altercation.
He confronted a far-right agitator who's been in Fanone's words, calling for his children to be harmed, or as Fanone said, quote, raped.
So credit to the people who are standing up in spite of all of that is how I would phrase it.
Rob, I like to turn to you at this point because we have been here. What do you do when the agency in charge is not following laws and judges' orders?
And it is such an important question, such a difficult question, and it speaks to what Michelle was just talking about. In fact, you want to talk about connecting two seemingly very disconnected stories, but that I think are absolutely connected. The last paragraph of Jack Smith's opening statement yesterday, which is obviously nothing, on its face, nothing to do with Minneapolis, nothing to do with immigration, none of those contexts. In that last paragraph, he says, and I'm quoting here, "I have seen how the rule of law can erode. My fear is that we have seen the rule of law function in this country for so long that we have come to take it for granted, but the rule of law is not self-executing." And what Michelle is talking about there is that a huge portion of our legal system doesn't depend on follow the law. It depends on the norms and the interstices that bind us together. And one of the interesting things is, in both of the sort of interviews from the people on the streets there that we've seen so far in this hour, we heard the same word. We heard community. Well, a huge part of community is norms, right? And so the answer to legally speaking, the answer to your question is oversight, which would mean Congress, which I think we both know is not going to happen. But the community answer is norms, and what Jack Smith was saying yesterday, that it is up to us because it's not self-executing.
Let me just be the voice for agency. And I mean, it could happen if every single donor to every single Republican said, "I won't give you another dollar until you stop supporting a lawless ICE that has, our investment in the Republican Congress looking like a lost cause because you're all going to get wiped out." They would jump like that. I mean, the only people they're more responsive to than Donald Trump's insane middle-of-the-night musings are their donors.
To Tim's point, we need to see them stand up the way these people are standing up.
They don't even have to get frozen beards to do it. I want to bring everyone back in. I believe I have to get to